This is only the second time the All-Party Parliamentary Committee has met with Gordon Brown since he took over as Prime Minister. They wanted to concentrate on global economic issues and the international financial markets, but Prime Minister Brown wanted to put things into context.
In the last 10 years, we've had two of the great benefits of globalisation, which have been cheap consumer prices for goods like electronics and clothes. And we've had low interest rates as a result of the low inflation that has come out of low manufacturing prices from China and elsewhere. We're now seeing the two difficulties. That is the massive restructuring that's taking place in the world economy, a shift of power to Asia, obviously happening, and this pressure on resources. Some people have called it resource nationalism. Pressure on food, pressure on oil, pressure on commodities. And I think we have got to deal with these as global problems that now require global solutions. And although we can do a great deal in the United Kingdom and other countries can do so to deal with the costs of energy or to deal with the problem of food shortages, in the end, these are global problems that require global action. Now, if you take, first of all, food, it's pretty clear to me that there is a food shortage that is the worst for 30 years. It's pretty clear also that we'll need to increase food production. One of the great tragedies of our time is that Africa is a net importer of food when it could actually be a net producer or exporter of food. So at this time, the worst thing we could do is to cut the support to developing countries and preventing them developing their agricultural systems. And we will have to make progress on the removal of the food subsidies in what is a very protected market.
He then switched to the present problems regarding oil prices and oil production.
When I talk about oil, you mentioned the IEA's proposals about oil. I think it is reducing our dependence on oil that makes the environmental imperative about climate change come together with an economic imperative, which is that we must reduce the world's dependence on this one fuel, or oil and gas, if we put them both together. And in Britain's case, we will soon be 80% dependent for gas imports on other countries, and that is not a situation we want to be in. So it is ultimately a decision about, first of all, nuclear power, secondly, about renewables and how we can expand renewables, and thirdly, about greater energy efficiency. And the agenda, which is an economic as well as environmental agenda for the world, is now very clear indeed. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reduce our dependence on oil, and we will have to take big strategic decisions, and these include decisions that other countries as well as us, because we've made these decisions about nuclear energy, other countries as well as us have got to make decisions about the stimulation of renewables. We will soon become the world's biggest offshore wind producer as a result of the decisions that we've made in the North Sea. And we'll have to make decisions about energy efficiency, and that's about cars, and it's about the efficiency of the use of energy in households. Now, these are three major changes that arise from what we see both around the world and the rising oil price itself.
He then continued with his thoughts on global food production.
I will go to the G8 with a proposal that we increase the support for agricultural production in developing countries, that all the G8 and other countries are prepared to help the Africans particularly, but other countries invest in increasing both the production and the productivity of their agriculture, where of course the ability to use fertilizers and other means by which productivity is improved has been limited. In other words, we need a new green revolution in the developing countries to enable them to produce what they will need for the future. But that will cost money, and I think it's important to recognize that this would be the wrong time to cut aid to developing countries, even although we are in difficult circumstances ourselves, and so are the other industrialized countries, because of the rise of oil and food prices. It would be, in the short term and long term, a huge mistake to cut that aid.
Then he talked about pushing for reform of major financial institutions.
We're part of a group of the Commonwealth countries, as well part of a discussion in the European Union about major reform of the international institutions. I think we found with the financial crisis, the credit crunch, that we've got no proper early warning system about issues of financial stability for the world economy. We've got the Financial Stability Forum, which we actually played a part in setting up. But I think the International Monetary Fund, which used to deal with balance of payments crises that countries had in what were basically sheltered economies, has got to change for the new global economy. So we need that early warning system. We need to be better at dealing with issues of financial stability at a global level. You have national regulators, but you have global capital markets you need to change. I think the World Bank has got to change fundamentally. It's got to be able to deal not just with the problems of poverty, but the problems of the environment and climate change. And if we are to get an agreement at Copenhagen on climate change, which would cut emissions substantially, then there is no way that the poorest countries in the world, the emerging markets or the developing countries in the world, can finance the climate changes that are needed without substantial injections of finance, whether in loan finance or grant finance. And you will need a body with the size and capacity of the World Bank to be able to guarantee that there are flows of money for the investment needed in alternative sources of energy. And I also think, as far as the United Nations are concerned, that we will see over time, whether it be Burma or Zimbabwe, or before that Darfur or Rwanda, or countries in the eastern part of Europe around the breakup of Yugoslavia, we will need better ways of establishing stability, reconstruction, as well as peacekeeping and humanitarian aid. And we do not have the international organisations that can help us by moving into countries on request with civil society as well as military people that can help reconstruct these societies when they are failed states or failing states.
The next G8 summit is set to have a full agenda when it convenes in Japan.